Welcome to the 99 Podcast, a ministry of Crossroads Grace Community Church in Manteca, California. I'm Heather Mahoney, and I'm excited that you're joining us for Season 2 of the 99 Podcast. We hope it challenges you and creates a hunger to dive deeper into Scripture so you can know Jesus better. Welcome back to the 99. This week, our mighty leader of high school and young adults is joining us, Preston Kulesha.
Hey, I don't know about mighty, but I do lead those things.
Oh, this is a good week.
Oh, it's such a good week. We have so many cool things going on. Next gen stuff, preaching stuff, God stuff. It's all good.
So it's Move Up Weekend, which might seem a little weird if you don't have kids in school. Maybe you do have kids in school, but we started moving our students up about a week and a half, 2 weeks before school gets out in an effort to help them build relationships, as a lot of them are about to go to camp, because we usually take 300 campers and counselors to camp, and we want them to know each other a little bit.
It's really good that they can make some friends beforehand, not just throwing them in the deep end with no one. But, I mean, they're all moving up in the same grade. So
100%.
As a crew of 8th grade boys that have been little besties in middle school, they're going to be besties in high school.
They're going to love it. I also loved that you were preaching on Move Up Weekend. It's almost like it was intentional.
Oh, boy.
And then celebrating all of those high school students and the amazing leader, Debbie Darrow, who have just served faithfully. Like, that's so cool. I love that our church loves to celebrate that.
It is the dream to have a volunteer who loves serving God and loves her students so much that she would follow them from 5th grade to 12th grade. Like, that's ridiculous. And the fact that she did that and she loved it and she's going right back into serving with middle schoolers and going to go right back into it is just a testament to how great she is. And then all those students, like, that was just a small snippet of all of the students that we have serving. I think there's like over 70 high schoolers at least that serve in just kids every week. And I'm sure middle schoolers is well into the double digits also.
Yeah. And that's just seniors who are currently serving. That's not even seniors maybe who used to serve.
True.
And we love that our mission statement in students here at Crossroads is loving God, loving people, and loving serving. And so to get to highlight that is really cool. I know our overarching mission for Crossroads, hopefully you're paying attention, it's said almost every week from the front, which is to lead everyone to discover Jesus and follow him fully. And that really just feeds into that to help students understand that. Okay, you had something at the top of your message that hit the cutting room floor, even though it was good, and even though you're like me and you talk fast, which I appreciate. I know not everyone does. In your wisdom, you cut some stuff, so it wouldn't be too much time. But you were going to talk about how being in the spotlight doesn't actually equal leadership.
Yeah, I was reflecting on growing up. I weaseled my way into being in charge of a lot of things growing up, and I think that's just because if you talk really loud and you make the room look at you, they just assume that you're a leader. And so I led all sorts of clubs and student councils in like elementary school all the way up through college, different like student council leaderships and clubs and whatnot. And reflecting on it, I don't know if I did a lot of leadership. I did a lot of telling people what to do. I did a lot of here's what's happening, move it or lose it type stuff. And so what we had at the top of the message that had to get cut was this idea that like a spotlight is what we think leadership looks like, where all the eyes are on you. You are illuminated because of your position, when in reality, like, that's not leadership. That's an external source highlighting someone, whether they deserve it or not. Whereas, and this is where it transitioned in the message, was like, God says that we are to be the city on the hill, the light of the world. That means that we are the light source for ourselves. We don't need external things pointing at us. Our leadership makes us shine in a dark room regardless of external factors. And I just think that, too many people have spotlights and they think that's leadership, and it's not. It's not the case.
Yeah, that is very accurate information, that is not actually leadership. I nerded out on what you said, so I looked into it a little bit, not even knowing that Peyton Manning was like your most favorite NFL player.
Yes, I loved Peyton Manning growing up. We played a lot of Madden, which is the NFL football video game, with my dad and my brother. And in Arizona, we were Cardinals fans, and my dad always was Cardinals, so I had to pick a new favorite team and player, and all I could do in Madden was pass, and Peyton Manning was the best quarterback, so I locked in with Peyton Manning, and he was my favorite of all time. My son has a Peyton Manning jersey in his closet right now.
Okay, so did you buy it, or did someone know and gift it to you?
My dad, I can't remember. It was either mine from a very long time ago, and my dad had it and like kept it and then gave it to me to give to Ozzy, or he like found it at a garage sale. So it's either
so
really
sweet.
sentimental
Yeah.
or just a little bit. But yeah, my
Just
dad
a
got
little
it.
bit.
Yeah.
So the reason the article was so cool about Peyton Manning is because while he's retired from the NFL after winning his second Super Bowl, he is the all-time leader in multiple quarterback categories. He was named NFL MVP 5 times, which is no small feat, but he never made it about himself, and he always wanted everyone else to get the attention, which I love. So instead, he shined the spotlight on others instead of himself. So he was noted for using words like team, we, and us when he would describe what went well during the game. He named his teammates by name, so he knew all of them. He would like praise them personally. He accepted the blame and even joked about a slump. There was at one point where he threw 8 interceptions in 2 games. Do you remember this, Preston?
I remember some bad times. I sure do. Yeah, there's a little bit of rough times.
Peyton thanked his teammates for sticking with him in the slump. Peyton deflected the spotlight from his records of the past to what the team needed to do moving forward in the future. He didn't need to stand out in the crowd. And I just think we need more people like that in our world who don't crave the spotlight, but they accept the responsibility of the leadership to shine it on the others.
And it's contagious too, right? If you
Yes.
have he was objectively one of the best quarterbacks of the time. I don't care what you say, Daniel Roulette. He was top tier, along with Tom Brady, of course. But it like rubs off on everyone, and the whole team was in that same mindset. The coach, Tony Dungy, for a long time, he wrote this awesome autobiography where he talks about not only his faith in Christ, but like how he leads the team and how it's the same type of way.
Oh,
and so
yeah.
him and Peyton Manning were like leading in the same direction. So yeah, it's really cool example of what leadership looks like. And that's why they beat the Bears. So take that, Chicago. You got the Pope, but the Colts beat you.
Okay, so you mentioned Daniel Roulette. That's Pastor Jimmy's son. Is he also a Browns fan?
He is a Browns fan, which I mean,
Not much to brag about there. Interesting that he's talking smack to you.
he's got a real high horse about quarterbacks of the time.
Okay, perfect. Well,
Yeah.
I'm a Raider fan, so I'm not really going to say anything right now.
Bummer.
We will move on to the next subject, which is I loved in your message, you just talked about how easy it is for the world to understand just what real leadership is. It's so true.
Yeah, like I think it's just leadership is, again, just big and bold. And I shouted out our wonderful leader, Teresa Salcido.
Yeah, you
in
did.
The message.
Kids, moon.
And she is like such a good leader, but you're not going to see her rallying the troops. We read in history. History's always written by the victors, right? And who's the one who's saying the story most of the time? It's the loud, proud, in charge one. And that doesn't always mean that they have the right leadership. And so when we reflect on our lives and like our status as Christians and whatever profession or hobbies or relationships that we have, like we have to remember that leadership is not defined by the things that are looking on you, like the external things that are raising you up. It's defined like how you shine your light as a person, and people are naturally drawn to that. They understand that like there's something different about this person that illuminates themselves as opposed to their title or their business card or their status in the club, whatever it is.
Yeah, and if you want to be a really good leader, I would say the first step is to go be a good leader. Like put your head down and do the work. I'm thinking of this funny. I thought it was funny. I shared the story on my social media. Not everyone thought it was funny, but when obviously rip to how Golden State just did.
That was rough. It was a rough game.
It was a rough season ender. But back the last series, who are they playing? Was it
The Rockets?
They were playing the Rockets.
Yeah, the Warriors beat
and
the Rockets.
They interviewed Steph Curry afterwards, and they're like, "Hey, how do you think? Like, you've had this many championships, you've beat them here this many times. How do you think the city thinks of you?" And he's like, "That I'm a winner." And I laughed so hard, and I shared it because I found the humor in it, and then I didn't like have any explanation to it. And some people were like, "That guy's a narcissist and a jerk," and I was like, "Probably." And the truth is, like, he's earned the right to the titles he won. Maybe he wasn't in that situation. Maybe that wasn't ideal. I was laughing so hard. But also that wasn't an example of biblical leadership of what that looks like in the Bible, which is why I appreciated that he used Matthew 5:14-16. And it reads, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl." Oh no, that's what I want to shout from the kids song. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. And I love in your message, what you end up talking about sanctification, being set apart to look and act more like Jesus every day. You said sanctification is becoming more like Jesus, or more like who Jesus was and doing what he did. So can we break this down a little bit more?
Yeah, there's a second half to the talk on leadership where you have to first identify everyone who follows Christ is called to be a leader. We are called to stand out from the world. And the second half of that conversation that we didn't have a ton of time to get into, but is what this is for, right?
Yep.
Is that you can be a leader. You can be a light for Christ. You can absolutely buy into every biblical principle of leadership, and you can look just like Jesus does. When you look in the mirror, you can look as one-to-one as you can. But if you're hiding in your house and never showing people and never interacting with people and never impacting people, what's the point? And that doesn't mean it's bad. It's still good, but you shouldn't put it under a bowl. You shouldn't hide it away, right? You need to be impacting people and affecting people. And so our process of sanctification is, yes, about our own internal reformation and our own lives changing to look more like the one who we are a disciple of, but it's also so that we can show others the example that we are as we follow Christ. I mean, Paul said, like, follow me as I follow Christ. He didn't say it in like vanity. He said it in, I've worked really hard to get to this point. If you want to see how to do it, look at this and I will show you Christ, right? So I think we just have to make sure that we buy into the idea that we are leaders. We buy into the idea that we should look more like Christ. And once we've done that, the fruits of that labor should be evident to all. The fruits of not just like the fruits of the Spirit, which we're going to talk a lot about this summer, but also the fruits that can then be given to other people. Like we fill up our cup so we can fill up other people's cups type thing.
That is so good. Yeah. The light of the world, I was reading that Jesus gives the Christian both a great compliment and a great responsibility when he says, hey, you're the light of the world, because he claimed that title for himself as he walked on earth. We see that in John 8:12. We see that in John 9:5. What are your thoughts on us not only being, and I kept thinking of lightsabers when I wrote this question, but what are your thoughts on us not only being light receivers, but also being light givers?
Yeah, same type of concept. You can't keep it can't keep it hidden. You got to make sure you're giving it out. And that's why we talk so much about serving in the church. And it's really easy to be cynical and be like, "Oh, they just want more people doing more stuff. They want more free labor," right? That's the cynical side of it. But it truly is not asking from people. It is asking for them.
Yes. Agreed.
I love to talk about selfish serving, which is when you sign up to serve, whether it's with high schoolers or kids or middle school or on the welcome team or on the care team or on the prayer team, whatever it is, if you are doing it for Christ, if you're doing it for godly reasons and you are filled up by it. There's some serving places that aren't for everyone. Not everyone's built to work with like freshman boys. I get it. But if you do find some sort of life in it, you're going to get to a point where you selfishly want to and need to continue to serve because it fills you up. Like you pouring out to these students, these people, these adults, these people need love will make you feel full and fulfilled because that is what we're called as Christians. God created us as beings who can pour out and be filled up by that. So
yes.
I think, like this isn't a call to serving because I need freshman boy leaders. I've got two awesome ones. It's Justin and DJ. But
Shout out.
Also means that like we will always make room for people to come and serve because it is life-changing, not just for the people you're helping, but also for you. Your life is going to be different when you serve and you love the Lord well.
You know, I was just talking to one of the middle school volunteers named Pete. He's awesome. And I asked him a few questions, and he had a friend come and say, hey, I want to serve in middle school. And he knew Pete. He knew a gal named Dominique who serves. And I was chatting with him about it. And he goes, I also, he volunteers. He's like an AA sponsor. He's doing a lot. So he does a lot of giving in the church. He does a lot of giving outside of the church, and some are connected, some are not. But he was saying like some of the people that he pours into come here now. And I say, why is that? And he said, well, my life is different. And I was like, well, why is that? And he's like, well, I gave it to the Lord. So I unpack it a little more. And he's like, well, I started serving. I started
awesome.
serving. And because I started serving, because of that connection, then I, moved forward in my walk with God, and I was more connected. I had more accountability. It just was so good. I have nothing to do with the comms department here. They're here. They're rock. And I was like, can we get you on video? Which isn't even my place to ask. But I was like, we need to tell your story, man, because he's like, my life changed because I started serving. And I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah, I think we either hear that story a lot, or unfortunately we don't have people tell us that story all the time, but we know it's true in their life. Like Debbie Darrow, who we just like shouted out. She wouldn't like get up on stage and tell you guys about how amazing it is, but you sit down with her on the couch, she's going to tell you how like it transformed her life and how she has been able to impact the lives of others, and it's beautiful.
And she's starting a whole nother cycle going back down to middle school.
So good.
And she told you, I'll see you in 3 years.
She sure did.
She's going to follow another group of girls up. Imagine being so blessed as a parent to have a leader who says, I'm not going to pour into your kid for 1 day a week or for this, but I'm going to follow them for 7 years. I know that's not for everyone, but we're grateful when that looks like people's stories.
Absolutely.
Okay, so another part of that verse is that salt really is needed because the world sadly is just rotting and decaying. And if our Christianity is also rotting and decaying, it won't be any good. The light's needed, right? So we've got the salt paired it with the light. The light is needed because the world is in darkness. And if our Christianity imitates the darkness, then we don't even have anything to show, right? The light would just illuminate. It wouldn't be good anyway. So we can't really affect the world for Jesus by becoming like the world.
Yeah, and that's the in the world, not of the world. It's that delicate balance of you don't want to put yourself in a Christian bubble that no one can ever see you or who you are or how you live. And you also don't want to live a life that looks identical to people who don't follow Jesus. Mm-hmm. Like if everything in your life looks the same as your friend who's a devout atheist, one of your guys' lives is not on track with what they say they are. And it's probably yours.
True.
I tell our high schoolers all the time, and then we did a message about it of like, would your life look different? Like your routines, your habits, the way you do things, would it look different if you weren't following Jesus? If all of a sudden that part of your brain went away and you're not following Jesus anymore,
okay.
like, and if they look at their daily schedule and they see like, oh, well, if I wasn't following Jesus, well, then I wouldn't read my Bible and I wouldn't pray here and I wouldn't be kind of this person, then that's an indication of, oh, good, like Jesus is impacting your daily life. Mm-hmm. But if they don't have a time where they read their Bible and they don't pray regularly and they treat their teammates poorly regardless, then it's a question of, okay, so how much is Jesus impacting your life? And I think that's just a good self-evaluation for all of us. Would your schedule and habits and way you treat people change if Jesus wasn't a factor?
Yeah, and if there's no light shining, then it's not that everyone's life has to be so attractive, but you do want Jesus in you to make a difference so other people do notice to say, what's that difference? The next part of the verse that talks about a city set on a hill can't be hidden. I just kept thinking, when I know you fly on a plane a lot because you have family every single bit of your family does not live in California. And so it's I would assume not fun to drive like 15 hours with your two wonderful children, but I bet they're not into it.
They don't even like flying, so I don't think they'd want to drive 15 hours.
But I just keep thinking when you are taking off or landing in the morning or the evening and it's dark and you can see all the lights from the city and it just looks so cool looking out that window. And I just keep picturing this. Obviously, Jesus's day, there was not, I don't know, Delta Airlines or whatever we're rocking with these days. But the idea that it can't be hidden. You could see it from far away. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's illuminated in everything you do. You should have, just thinking through students, like your teammates should wonder why you're different. Or at work, your employees or coworkers should wonder why you do things differently. And if they don't wonder why you do things differently, you're doing everything that they are, then you got to evaluate, like, how bright is your light shining?
Mm-hmm. I think there used to be a CD, a compact disc back in the day, and I think it was called A City on a Hill, and it was did we have that? I'm gonna have to ask my husband Sean if there was a CD called City on a Hill. Yeah, and I think it was like a bunch of people were in on the album, but I loved it. I rocked it a lot. I don't have a way to play CDs anymore, but it was a nice spot in my life.
No CD players anywhere, like no car, no nothing?
Oh, you know what? My daughter and son have like early 2000 vehicles,
There
they
you go.
probably do.
Yeah.
I'm probably a liar.
My truck's got one.
My vehicle does not. So, okay. We probably have one up at our double wide in the mountains. All right. Next up, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand. And I know I made a little joke like, hide it under a bush. Oh no, I'm going to let it shine. That's a song I grew up because I've gone to church since I was 0. But you just want your light to shine where it's most effective.
Yeah, I put your place in situations where it'll shine, but make sure that your light isn't weak enough that it'll be covered up by the places that you're in.
100%. And then it ends with that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So the purpose isn't shining. So our good works are evidence of what we bring. It's evidence of God's glory and not ourselves. It's reminding me of your spotlight is not leadership. It's you're reflecting what God's doing versus the producer of the light yourself.
Yeah, it's all about God, and it's one of the pieces of like Western Christianity that gets attacked quite a bit by just outside sects or critiques. Is like the American and just the Western Christian is more focused on doing good because it's good than doing good because it's what God says is right. And you might think, well, the ends are the same, right? The end goal is a good person. But the reality is like we're doing good things because we are trying to illuminate God, because we have been changed by the Spirit, because we are like actively being sanctified and looking to be more like Christ, right? And I saw this conversation basically saying like the devil and evil is not opposed to good things. It's opposed, he are, whatever, is opposed to Jesus and to like God the Father. And that doesn't, like, if you go way too down the theological rabbit hole, I'm sure you can find all sorts of things about it. But, like, the goal of Christianity is not just to be good people. It is to glorify God the Father. And that does not mean that we just do good things. Like, that's where you end up as a Buddhist. That's where you end up as, just a good person hoping for karma. We aren't doing good things because it's good. We're doing good things because God has ordained them as such. We're following a king and we're following a creator, not a moral code that makes us feel good.
And we're doing them for the result of connecting with God and glorifying him versus other people seeing those things in us. Because the truth is if you believe karma was real, then you have to stop believing it's real when you do something good for someone and then something good is not done back to you, right?
Yeah.
Now it like blows it up. And God basically says, hey, I love you so much. I'm going to be honest with you that this is going to be difficult to follow me. Like it's a simple yes, but it's yeses every day, time and time again, and continuing to say yes, even when life is so rough.
Yeah, life gets brutal, but the promise of God is firm through it all.
Oh, I found a cool Spurgeon quote that I loved. It said, the object of our shining is not that men may see how good we are, nor even see us at all, but that they may see grace in us and God in us and cry, what a father these people must have. Is it not the first time in the New Testament that God is called our Father, according to these verses? Is it not singular that the first time it peeps out should be when men are seeing the good works of his children? And I was like, I love it's attributing back to how God is a good father.
Yeah, it's so good.
All right. We are sticking with the acronyms every week of RARE as we've started with our first 2 weeks. So you had RARE, and your first one was just remembering that people are the priority. I know you used Luke 8, and you talked about, I enjoyed this, the insanity of the kind of Black Friday. I know now that we have Amazon and we have all this, we have Etsy, all those things. It's not the same, but
what a shame. What a shame.
In Luke 8, you were sharing the story of how Jesus ends up healing the woman who was it 12 years that she was sick without answers?
Yeah, 12 years. No one could figure out what was going on with her.
She touched his cloak and he knew, but you were like, hey, it was like so crazy there that everyone was pushing everyone. It was like Black Friday, but he stopped everything to connect with her because the one still matters in the masses.
And I have so much self-reflection on this, even just thinking of like our lobby on Sundays, which is so jam-packed, especially that transition between 10 and 11:30 is just
you are so right.
So many people in the middle. And I think about how sometimes like I have a thing I need to get to upstairs, or I have a person that I saw upstairs. I need to go talk with them.
Guilty.
And the amount of people I just bob and weave and sometimes like just pop right through like in that lobby without like even bothering to stop and like look at them and be like, oh, I like let's connect really quick is way too high. And I've tried to catch myself more often than not and try and like make sure that I'm focused on the people next to me as opposed to the next person I need to talk to. But it's a challenge. It's a struggle when you have so many tasks. And like Jesus was on his way to heal a dying kid. That's not like a little task. I'm not going upstairs to heal a dying child. I'm upstairs to talk to a high schooler about like service, right? And so I just think like remembering that the people right in front of you, the people next to you, like they are priority over your tasks is such a, Jesus showed it over and over and over again. And this Luke 8 one was one of my favorite ones.
I just also think me, can be so guilty of missing what's in front of you with the goal in mind and just not seeing people along the way.
Yeah.
And God is saying like, hey, this child who's dying is important, but like, so are you. And I don't want to miss it. And how much do we miss? Even last week when Brian was talking about rare parenting, we talked about how, hey, there's 936 weeks. You don't want to miss it. It's this phase of life that they're in, but it's going to pass. It's going to pass fast and you don't want to miss it. But it's like, that's so important with parenting, but it's also important to see people and see them as like, I have so few opportunities to connect with, to care for people, to lead them well or love on them.
Yeah, I was writing like doing work on this on Wednesday night, and my kids, they would not go to bed. It was one of those nights. Like, they just,
Don't rush bedtime,
dude,
Preston. We already learned this last week.
refused, and I was so annoyed. And I finally got them in bed, and I read them their Bible story like we do every night, and then prayer time is wonderful with them, but Ada says really long prayers, and then she starts to mumble halfway through, and then she starts to repeat herself, and most of the time it's adorable. And when you have a sermon to write and you know you're going to be up until 2, it's a little less adorable. And so I found myself like, I was like, okay, I'll just like I'll say my part of the prayer and then I'll dip out. And I said my part of the prayer and I went to walk out and I couldn't walk out the doorway. Like like it was a barrier stopping me. I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I have to. This is so much more important. And it absolutely was. And it was wonderful. And Ozzy said his little prayers and Ada said her not little prayers. And it was great. But I'm convicted all the time. People over priority.
Oh, God. You know, Brian even mentioned, I can't remember who shared it with, but a group of us saying, hey, I had a parent reach out to me after this message, and they were trying to rush bedtime because they had to get up way early, like almost in the middle of the night to help another kid with a planned thing. And I think their high schooler said, hey, weren't you listening to Pastor Brian tonight? It was literally on Thursday night. And they said, don't rush bedtime. And I don't know if it was mom or dad because I wasn't sure who it is. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And the parent said, you know what? I like altered what I was going to do and I got less sleep, which I didn't enjoy, but I got this time with my kid that I was just going to move past. And I was like, I love it when that happens.
That's so good.
The conviction sometimes is hard, but gosh, watching God move and then watching your own kid care about the message that's good stuff right there.
Great job, high schooler. I don't know who you are.
Ayo, me either.
Way to make us proud.
Okay, your A. So R was remember people are the priority, and A was anchored under pressure. So you shared Luke 22, in the face of direct persecution and betrayal from his people, his friend and his creation, Jesus, he did not break. He was anchored to his morals and his standards under pressure.
That's right. Don't be Prince Hans breaking under pressure.
Oh,
This is where
that's
Frozen
right.
comes in. We talked about
Frozen there.
Do we need to get someone dressed up like Elsa and just like casually walk behind me as I'm going? No, don't acknowledge it at all. Anchored under pressure. Like if you're gonna have godly leadership, like we didn't see Jesus break, and he had so many times where he could have, and I would argue human nature said he should have broken, let alone
Absolutely.
like up on the cross taking beatings until death, but also just persecution from people and being chased out of cities and being attacked by all of the religious elite. There were so many times that he could have broke and under pressure, and he was anchored to who he was, who he is, and we should follow the same suit.
Yeah, without that foundation, how you don't even have anything you could be anchored to.
Yeah.
So important. our return to joy. So joy does not mean the same thing as happiness. I appreciate that you said that, because happiness is so temporary and sometimes so wonderful, but not forever consistent in our life. But I just needed to bring up this line you shared, because I need to know what your awesome wife said. You said, childbirth is like a real life scene from a horror film. You were referencing that the end result is a baby, which is wonderful, but the process of labor was maybe not ideal. Please tell me what she said when you shared with her, like, hey, I'm going to say this in my sermon.
Yeah, so I've learned my lesson many times over the years of
Okay.
running things by my wife before
Good call.
I preach them, and I usually do a great job. When I did the Sabbath message, I realized I wasn't as clear on what I was going to say. I asked her if I could talk about our Sabbath, and she said
okay.
yes. I meant that I was going to read the notes that I took verbatim. She did not realize that. And so I read this to her just as like, hey, this is what I'm going to say. And when I read childbirth is like a real life scene from a horror film, she paused the show we were watching and gave me a horrified look and said, what? And I said, what do you mean, what? And she said, it's not, that's not the way it is. And I said, okay, if you were going to describe childbirth as a film, what would you describe it as? Because it's not a romance film and it's not a comedy. It's maybe action, but horror film is the best way. And she eventually agreed. And then when I read her about the joy part of seeing her kid, she thought it was nice and she let it be. But she was taken aback.
He said, but it ends positive.
It does. It ends so great.
So
but
positive.
Listen, I wasn't experiencing it, but I saw it, and it was, I mean, it's, there's no need to go further. It is terrifying.
You guys can sign up for a child development class at your local junior college if you're interested in more information regarding that.
Medical videos.
Ayo. And then lastly, for your E, you had endure hardship with God. It was prophesied by the prophet Isaiah, and it was recorded in Isaiah 53. And you mentioned this was a very clear prophecy that Jesus would die on the cross for the sins of others. So now we have to unpack Isaiah 53. You want to read it for us?
Oh, I sure do. Isaiah 53 from the word of our Lord is what I was going for there. Isaiah 53. It reads, it's 12 verses. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him. And by his wounds we are healed. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before his shearers is silent, he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away, yet who of his generation protested? For he was cut off from the land of the living. For the transgressions of my people he was punished. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. And though the Lord makes his life an offering from sin, he will see his offspring and prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hands. After he has suffered, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. By his knowledge, my righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death and was numbered with the transgressors. For he bore the sins of many and made intercession for the transgressors. Isaiah 53.
Okay, that is so much. I know in the past we've talked on the podcast about, the chances of the amount of prophecies that have happened and how we can know the Bible is real, like based on that. But that is like Jesus living this out. So when you talked about endure hardship with God, like I can't I mean, he stood strong through that. He was anchored through that. That's insane.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see why we had to cut it. Originally, we were reading that in the whole message. There's too much to do. The fact that he was there when this was written, right? Like we recognize that Christ has been present from before creation, and he will stand firm until after creation.
Yes.
He was there when the word was written, and he was there when the prophet Isaiah was prophesying that this would happen to the Messiah. Not only was he there, but also when he was a young boy, he was in school learning to be a rabbi, which is funny because, he was there when it was all written.
Yes.
But he would have had to memorize by the time, I believe it's your eighth or ninth birthday, you would have memorized the Pentateuch, like Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And then if you were good at that, you would progress on to basically like next level of school. And by the time you were before your 13th birthday, you would have had to memorize the entirety of what we now know as the Old Testament. So Jesus would have had to stand. I don't know exactly how their schools were formatted, but like if they were anything like old school like memorization stuff, he would have had to stand in front of the class and present Isaiah 53 as this prophecy of the suffering of the eventual Messiah who was him. And he would have known that.
Wild.
That's insane. So they'd be like, this was going to happen to me. This isn't fun. And like no punches are pulled in this. It's talking about like bearing our suffering, punished by God, stricken and afflicted, pierced for transgressions, crushed for iniquities, punishment, like his wounds. Like, dude, there's so much here that is just gnarly. And he stood firm in it and willingly walked into it like a lamb led to slaughter. He was silent and willing because of us, like because he loves us.
And it didn't benefit him. It only benefited us.
Yeah, not at all. In fact, like so Spurgeon talks about how the pain that he felt was, yes, like unmatched physical pain. Many people went through crucifixion and it was horrific. Many people have felt the pain of being separate from God, but no one in human history before or since has felt the pain of going from a perfect creation or a perfect being to having the entirety of all of the world's sins thrust upon you. And like in that moment, Jesus felt a feeling that no human will ever feel, both in pain and in separation from his Father, because none of us can feel the same level of connection to God in the way that he did from the beginning until the end. He was ripped from it. And so it wasn't just like the physical endurance, which it was the totality of it. He was the sacrificial lamb. He was the substitution for our sins. And it's laid out pretty gruesomely here. And yet he did it.
Yeah. That's so much to take in. I would encourage you guys this week, if you want to dig into that more, to reread Isaiah 53 and maybe just kind of meditate on that a little bit, and just out of gratitude for who Jesus is and what he's done for us. Okay, Preston, you shared in the face of hardship, Jesus does two intentional things. One, he spends time with his community, and two, he spends time with God. And I liked how you were sharing about how when you've gone through the hardest times in your life, it's the closest people and God who know about it, because that's who you've been talking to about it the most. You also said, here's the deal. When you sign up to follow Jesus, and you kind of mentioned this at the top of the show, you signed up to be a leader. If you're called to be a leader, then we need to do everything in our power to be godly leaders, because we're followers of Jesus, therefore we're leaders. And that type of leadership is rare in our world today.
Yeah, we don't get a pass because we think that like we don't qualify as a leader. We don't just get this little like, oh, well, I guess I'll just be a good Christian in the confines of my home. Like we need to be leading others to Christ. And being a part of this church, Brian says it every week, or whoever's teaching, like our whole existence is to lead everyone to discover Jesus and follow him fully. And when you're here, you are either the goal of that mission or you are a participant in that mission. Those are the two slots. Those are the two seats on the bus you can fill. Either you are the one who we are trying to lead to discover Jesus and follow him fully, or you have discovered Jesus, you're following him fully, and now it's your turn to lead others to do the same. And that's like the mantra of this church. That is the heartbeat of what we do. And I would, if I can so boldly claim, I think it's a pretty biblical call. I think like that is
Yes,
the whole
absolutely.
reason we do it is because that is what Jesus has modeled for us and is very direct in telling us.
100%. Hey, let's end with the encouragement that you shared at the end of your service, which was Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. That is too good.
Yeah, we talked about a really big concept of sanctification, and it could take months to unpack if we want to do it every single week. But here's like the bottom line, and this is why I love the Philippians verse that we have, and then the 2 Corinthians verse that we have in the message too, is every day we are supposed to look more like Jesus than we did yesterday. And every day when I wake up and I come to work, I want to look as best as I can because that's just what we do as people. But the reality is we have bad hair days and we have bad skin days.
This
and
is true.
Sometimes it just doesn't work out. And in the process of sanctification, it's not saying a day that you slip up is a day that you're like farther from God and like woe be to you. Christ's call to us is to increasingly pursue him in everything. It's not a call for perfect, it's a call for transformation. And this Philippians verse of like, don't be anxious about everything, but in every situation by prayer and petition, present your request to God, and the peace of God will guard your hearts and your minds. We should be turning to God in assistance for not just the hard things we go through, not just the leadership things, but in just the process of looking more like Jesus. Like we can't expect to do that by our own grit and willpower. We do it by the grace of God. So turn to him and he will guide you, he will lead you, and he will help you in not just sanctification, but in leadership and parenting and marriage, and in sneak peek for next week, in our decisions.
Yep, in our decisions. And another fun sneak peek for next week is that Preston will be hosting the episode.
That's right. It's me and my guy, Pastor Ed, gonna tap into that British brain of his and learn all of the answers to every theological question you might have.
From a British person.
From a British man. Yeah.
We probably just scared him. We're really excited for Ed, though. This was a great week. Thanks again for your time today, Preston. I appreciate you. The listeners, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to check out the show notes if you have any questions, if you have, you're looking for any links to the conversations we talked about. If you're looking for any of Preston's terrible prom photos, I cannot help you there. I promised him I would not post it on the internet, but thank you guys for joining us today.
Tag, you are it.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you next weekend at Crossroads on campus or online for one of our 4 weekend services. To view our service times, make sure you check out our website at crossroadsgrace.org. Tag, you're it.